Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I am your host, Linda Joy, Mindset Elevation Guide and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. We are about to celebrate our 20th year of publication, inspiring, supporting, and empowering women to live their best lives. If you haven't grabbed your free subscription, and yes, it is still free, you can go to subscribe to aspire.com and tap into all the beautiful wisdom that's waiting for you within its pages. So today we're going to be talking about source awareness, conscious remembrance of your direct connection to source, your inner wisdom, and so much more. I am so excited to have an old friend here with me today, and I'm celebrating her because she is such a lighthouse in this world, and she just released a new book called Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. And I want to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to dive into this soulful conversation. Laurie Seymour is the founder and CEO of the Baca Institute, host of Wisdom Talk Radio, certified master trainer, and creator of the Quantum Connection Process, with a background as a psychotherapist, trainer, and solutions engineer for Fortune 100 companies. She brings over 25 years of experience in activating creative intelligence and inner potential. Recognized as a quantum connection mentor and Taraya Grandmaster, Laurie guides others to dissolve old patterns and live aligned with Source. Welcome, Laurie.
Linda, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And you are a force. 20 years for Aspire?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's going to be, birthday is coming up in February, and this radio show will be a decade old in April of next year. It's like
Wow.
all these beautiful sacred milestones, so many beautiful, soulful conversations with visionaries like you. I just love what I do.
And I love that you do it.
Yeah, well, we have known each other for quite a while. We've been connected on social media. I've always been drawn to you and your message. And so, ladies, when I saw Laurie has a book out, her first solo book, I was like, girl, we're going to get you on the show. And I reached out to her. So thank you for your big soulful yes.
Absolutely. I can't imagine anything else with you.
Well, thank you, my friend. So we're going to talk today about inner guidance and so much more. So let's start there. Can you speak about inner guidance and how it connects not only in your personal life and how you choose to live, but also in your work with conscious entrepreneurs and visionaries, because it's a part of who we are and it works through every area of our lives.
It does. It does. That's such an important point that it's not just, oh, I'm in trouble. I need to figure out what my intuition is saying or what I'm supposed to do. It's really for everything. Even what do I need to make for dinner tonight? What should I be eating right now? Inner guidance is something that I think is so much more than intuition, because we can develop it in a way that it becomes reliable. And so many people think of intuition as, well, sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm not, sometimes I can access it, other times I can't. And we are designed so that we can connect with our own inner GPS, meaning that is our guidance system. That is something that is inherent in our own blueprint. And yes, we do need to come to it. We do need to learn how to cultivate it so that it becomes that sustainable guidance system, not just, oh, I've been inspired, I see something, I've got a great idea. But then the question becomes, and the work becomes, how do I sustain my connection? How do I sustain this inspiration, this inner guidance, all the way through whatever it is that I'm creating, whether it's a new program or writing a book or building a new business, developing a new relationship, whatever it is, it ends up being that which can sustain you.
Oh, I love this. And I want to clarify because you feel there's a difference between inner guidance and intuition. And so for our listeners, how is it different?
Partly it's in mindset, it's in how we think about it, that people say, well, I'm not intuitive, or I'm only sometimes intuitive. Or sometimes people say, yes, I'm always, I've got a really strong capacity to be intuitive. I broaden the whole thing out into something that is an inherent part of each person. Some people may be more tuned into it than others. And we could say that about intuition too, I realize. But there's something about realizing that in our connection with the universe, in our connection with the quantum field of potential, because we are part of it, we are that divine spark. We are that piece of, or the holographic representation of the whole universe. So there's this whole field of infinite potential, and how we allow ourselves to tune into that is our way of accessing that system within us that does guide us. Because intuition is more sometimes used, well, I'm intuitive about that or that, but not about everything. And inner guidance is something that we can build within us to be reliable and to be sustainable and to allow us to draw to us from that field of infinite potential that is the universe, that which is ours to do, to realize, to know, and to have as our next right step.
I love your description. And for myself, I love the words inner guidance. I call it inner wisdom. And that's the language I use because for myself, and I think this resonates with everything you just said, when I started tapping into it, by using those phrases, I felt like I was owning that it is a part of who I am and not out there, right? Like
Yes.
we all have this beautiful gift. And for me, everything I do is led by that relationship I have with my inner wisdom and my source. So,
Yes.
Everyone says, Linda, you're such a master manifester. And I used to go, I don't see that. But now I go, yes, I am, because I trust my inner wisdom. I take action and know that every idea is coming through me and to me. And when
Yes.
you trust that, as I do now, because I've been on this
Uh-huh.
path for 30 years, everything I do is through that lens. So, yes, I feel it, when we're tapped into our inner wisdom, our source, I think it makes life easier.
It does. It does. Linda, everything you just said is so parallel or so connected to how I think about it too. I call it inner wisdom too. And it is that experience, that physicalized almost experience of our connection to source, that we're not separate, even though we come into physical being. We're born and we think, oh, well, yeah, now I'm here in the body, and you forget. People forget that connection, and that's actually one of the. I don't know if it's the reason that I wrote this new book, but it is certainly the foundational message, if you will, that we forget And our work is to remember. And as we remember our connection to Source, that's what gives us the capacity to tap into our inner wisdom.
Yeah, and for me, I can remember it was I think the beginning of Aspire, so almost 20 years ago. I was
Mhm.
taking a class with a local friend, and it was learning to use angel cards to connect to your own intuition, not to do it for a living. And
Mhm.
that's why I went. And I can remember those thoughts though, like, oh, I'm just not one of those. They're intuitive. That's not me.
Yeah.
Once I opened the door to allowing myself to believe that I was intuitive, or I guess we'll use the word that I had access to the same source of inner wisdom that everyone else does,
Mhm.
that began my journey. Then, of course, you play. Like I look at my relationship with my source and my inner wisdom as this playful, fun thing. And because I did that, the signs and synchronicities and all that flow in so quick because I built my trust muscles. So let's talk about that for a moment before our first break. It's
Uh-huh.
learning to trust what we receive and not go intellectualize it in our head. Do you speak to that too?
Absolutely. Actually, trust for me was the biggest issue. I had so much, for me personally, I had so much self doubt because I did look at everyone else and I thought they all know the secret, whatever that is. I didn't know what it was. They all have something that I don't have. And I didn't talk about that, but in my heart of hearts, that is how I felt. And I love how you word it. And actually, it's very similar to, because I talk about the trust muscle too.
Oh,
When we allow ourselves to start to experiment with receiving, start to experiment with trusting what we do receive in a dream, in a sensation, in a thought, and we go beyond just that mental level of interacting with the world, we start to embody more and more of what's available to us. And and that trust muscle is essential to having that sustainable inner guidance. And in my book, Unconditional Remembrance, I speak a lot to that because our capacity to trust, our capacity to receive, um, it's foundational. And it's foundational to being able to rely on that connection to source. And that's why I talk about it as remembrance. Because once we have the physical experience of, oh, this unconditional love it, it's part of how I'm built. It's available. It's not something I have to earn. It's not something I have to
yeah.
figure out.
Yeah, that speaks to me. And for me, because of the past wounds of childhood in my 20s and 30s, I was like you, self-doubt, couldn't trust. And so for me, developing that relationship with my own sense of trust and what it felt like in my body, my soul, my spirit
Mm-hmm.
was a major part of my healing. So that really resonates. And Laurie, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back and continue this soulful conversation, my friend.
Okay.
I am with Laurie Seymour. You can learn more at thebacainstitute.com. Grab a copy of her book, Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. As always, the links are down in below, whatever platform you're listening to us on. We'll be back in a moment.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Beautiful soul, are you craving a soul-nurturing community of women interested in personal and spiritual development? You're not alone. When you step onto the virtual campus of Inspired Living University, a sacred community and curriculum for women on the path of self-discovery, you become a soulful part of our high-vibe family of women where you can grow, learn, and be reminded of your truth and power. Along with 2 mindset elevation circles each month with founder Linda Joy, you receive on-demand access to a sacred curriculum that includes a library of personal and spiritual development classes led by leading luminaries on topics that support you in living your most magical and intentional life. These high-value masterclasses are just the beginning of your transformational journey. Step into the circle today at inspiredlivinguniversity.com/sacred-invite.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. This is your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Laurie Seymour, author of the brand new book, Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. So I love that we ended the last segment talking about trust, because I think for so many, I have as you know, a large global community. I have a lot of segments of that community that I gather with for different brands. And something comes up in conversation every time we're talking about intuition, inner wisdom. All of what we're talking about today is, Linda, I get messages or I'll receive this knowing of my next step, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
But then I automatically start doubting it. And then I go into my mind going, that's not real. You're just projecting that you want that. And so I always go, girl, I remember that too, because I used to do that. So if someone is struggling with their trust muscles, Laurie, what would you say to help them learn to embrace trust, I guess you can say?
It's a great question, Linda, and it's one that's very close to my own heart. How do we trust? How do we come to that place of trust? In writing this book, there were a lot of things that came through me. There were we could call them transmissions, we could call them anything, but I don't really like to use any of those kinds of words. I prefer to just say this was my inner guidance speaking to me, and it's written as if it is to me, even though it is a part of myself that I'm giving voice to. Now, one of the things that I developed in my own training was, how does that feel in my body? So after I had a deep experience of being loved, of that unconditional love, I recognized what that felt like in my body. You mentioned that key piece, an embodied experience, and then I could use that to almost to evaluate any thought I had. So I'd have an old feeling come in. I'd have that doubt, that dismissive, oh no, that's just my, as you said, my projection or my wish or my whatever. It's just my personality. It couldn't possibly be real. And I started identifying that the feeling that was engendered in my body when I would have those kinds of thoughts was tightness, distress of some sort or another. I didn't feel good. It didn't feel like, it certainly wasn't in flow. And I contrasted that with what it felt like when I felt the unconditional love. And that had such a feeling of well-being and of flow. And I really built my trust muscles around that distinction. And it's so important to to realize that there is a difference and that your body does know truth. So I had to learn how, I had to, I guess, develop my own bodily experience of what is trust, what is love, not the intellectual conception of that, but the feeling of that. And so then it became easier and easier to say, oh, you're that old pattern. And it's just a pattern. I didn't need to process it. I didn't need to do anything around it. I just needed to call it what it was. It was, oh, you're an old pattern. And it became easier and easier and easier to let it go, to just release it and embrace the feeling where my whole body could relax and expand.
This speaks to my journey because I was so disconnected, and my struggle also, Laurie, because I was so disconnected from my body for 35 years because I had an eating disorder when I was young, that I didn't know how to process through my body. Does that make sense? Like I couldn't embody because I was disconnected.
Right.
So for myself, I look back now and go, it was the healing of work that I did to heal my relationship with my body that did allow me to recognize, as you so beautifully described, the sensations in my body when I was receiving, right? And for me, it's very similar. I call it constriction, expansion. I can tell if I'm feeling constricted, that's my ego, fear-based brain.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's expansion, I go, oh, baby, that's my source, right? And so for many women that I've spoke to, we have to heal that relationship with our body, right? So that we can experience the fullness of our inner wisdom. What would you say to that? Does that resonate with?
It does, and I want to put a little something into that. Because my background is as a psychotherapist, I say this with all respect for that process. And at the same time, I want to say we don't need to spend our whole lives healing, because then we're stuck in that mode of thinking there's something broken, there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. And for me, that kept me always feeling like that, just frankly, like there was something wrong, knowing there was something wrong. But that was such a mental, as you say, that ego, fear-based part of us, the amygdala part of the brain that just wants to keep us safe. And as I started really experimenting with going into the unknown, being curious about what else there was, that in itself took me into what is this sensation I'm feeling in my body? Could this have other meaning? Could this have potential for me? And to some extent, out of all of that, I did develop the quantum connection process, which is looking at how we tend to relate with this quantum field that we are part of, that is that field that unlimited potential that we live in.
I love your description. Something you said resonated. It was, well, everything you've been saying resonates. So when you said about that feeling like something was wrong with myself, I got to that point in that healing journey 30 years ago, like, I can't keep coming here, for sessions, because I felt this was internal. I felt I was always focusing on what was wrong instead of what you just so beautifully said about possibility.
Yes.
And that's when I changed the direction and stopped saying, I am healing, something's wrong, I must do this, and looked into, I want to just focus on possibility for the next chapter of my life, which is the last 30 years. So the first 30 years was fixing what I thought was wrong, because of course that's how we're programmed. Go do this, get treatment. And then something, again, my inner wisdom said, you're done. You're done focusing on this bullshit, excuse my language. Stop focusing on the blessings, the possibility. And I'm going to tell you, even though I wasn't on the spiritual path as I am now. I was being led, I can see. That was that was the best decision I ever made for my life. So I 100% wholeheartedly agree with what you said. There is nothing wrong with us.
Wow.
And when we can shift that lens, which I can speak that from where I am now, that young woman, I fell into that trap of thinking, I gotta fix this. I'll be okay once I fix this. Bullshit, but there's nothing wrong with us. Those are just experiences I had that became labels. And I chose to shed the labels. I just had that conversation with another friend who's a therapist, and she's a client of mine. And I'm like, I Velcroed those labels of those stories to my energy field. And then one day I just said, I am so done. And I can remember the pain of ripping off the labels of these experiences that I used the labels to weigh me down. And the freedom from that.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Did you feel the freedom?
It was a deep freedom, and there's no accidents that we're having this call after I just got off a session with a dear client with me many years, and we were talking about identity. So I, back then, identified who I was as my wounds, as my traumas, and that day that I had that epiphany, I guess, I call it a spiritual moment, was I am not any of those. Those were experiences I had. They do not make me who I am. And that one single moment, I think, was pivotal in me becoming fully the truth of who I always was and who I am today. And it sounds like that resonates with your own personal journey.
Oh, Linda, you have no idea how much that resonates. You could be my spokesperson.
It's like a freedom of, I can't explain it. And when you have grandchildren, you and I were talking off here, it's something I've been teaching them, like, you're going to fall, you're going to get back up. But those falls, those failures, those roadblocks are not the truth of who you are. Right? So don't own them. Don't grab them.
Well, here's another little piece to add to that. Because what I realized somewhere along the line, and certainly in the writing of this book, is that those early experiences that were so painful, that helped me to forget, if you will, that I felt so wounded by, they were actually... they were the path. They were part of the path. They were part of the path that I needed to take. Because how could I talk about unconditional remembrance if I had never forgotten?
Oh my God. We have so much aligned. I'm looking at the time going, I got to take the next break, but I want to say this. So let's go to the next break. We're going to continue this conversation because this right here is such an important piece of information for our listeners to grasp. So we're going to be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Laurie Seymour, founder and CEO of the Baca Institute, and of course, author of the new book, Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. Visit her at thebacainstitute.com. Again, the links are down below. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. FM.
It only takes one person to transform a relationship, any relationship. Relationship expert and Aspire magazine columnist Stacey Martino and her husband Paul are the founders of relationshipdevelopment.org and the Hay House authors of The Missing Piece, a proven method to single-handedly transform your relationship and create harmony in your home. At a time when divorce rates are sky high and families are unnecessarily suffering, The Missing Piece provides powerful solutions to help you navigate real-life situations harmoniously, regardless of what you're currently facing. The Martinos have successfully empowered thousands of students over 14 years with proven tools and strategies that work to transform their relationship, any relationship, without their partner's participation. Transforming your relationship is possible and begins with you. Start now by ordering your copy of The Missing Piece at missingpiecebook.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world.
Thanks for joining us. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Laurie Seymour. And I was having like one of those brain emojis, right, as you were speaking in the last segment. So, Laurie, something you said was so key in how I look at my life, and I want others to hear what you said. I can see that every experience, even the ones that I back then deemed negative, traumatic, etc., and I think we've all had those kind of experiences. They may be different. I see now, from a spiritual perspective of where I am now at 63, that, oh my goodness, no wonder I had those experiences, because they were led to give me more empathy, compassion, connection for the work I do with women now. I see there was no accidents. And tell me if that captures what you were just saying. I want to make sure I'm capturing.
It absolutely does, Linda. And there's another piece to that too, which is, okay, there are 4 quantum connection styles, archetypes. And one of them is the bridge builder. And that's a lot of who I am. I'm also a piece of another one, the pioneer. But for this, we become the bridge builders. It's not even, it's going beyond empathy. It's, although that's important, it's here's how you can do it. Here's the path you can travel. Here's the way you can come to this place of remembrance. And if we hadn't taken that journey, and obviously you were strong enough to take that journey, if you hadn't taken that journey, then you would be unable to really point the way or show the way for others.
Oh, I believe that wholeheartedly. I have no doubt. And it's funny because in some of the visions I receive ideas from, one of them is always this bridge over water, right in the middle of a forest. It's like part of what I've always received. It's so peaceful, but it's always been when in times of indecision, like when I'm trying to make an intuitive decision, I see that. And it's a reminder, just trust and walk over. So the fact that you brought up bridge, I'm like, oh my goodness, because that's what I always see in this beautiful forest. And it's just always my source's way of saying, Linda, you've been on this bridge many times. Just walk over.
Yes.
You are safe. You know what's ahead. And so I just wanted to thank you because you brought that visual right back in for me.
Yeah.
Something else too is I love that you keep saying about remembrance, because and that you named your book Unconditional Remembrance. So I read that and from our conversation today, but I want to make sure it resonates and speaks your truth. For me, it's like remembering who we've always been.
It is.
Remembering our sacred truth that we forgot as we came into this human body and had all the human experiences. I told my clients, like, our inner light, which I guess is also your inner wisdom, gets buried by the muck of living the human experience. And our spiritual job is to excavate the muck so that light can glow as fully as it's meant to. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that remembrance piece.
Well, you spoke to that so beautifully, Linda. Yes, we it's part of, I think, what the original blueprint is that we are supposed to forget so that we can remember, so that we can, I believe we come into physical beings so that we can learn some new lessons, develop perhaps some new strengths, maybe complete cycles that are in need or are ready to be completed. And in coming into a deeper and deeper level of remembering the truth of who we are, remembering that we are so much more than the part of us that wants to keep ourselves safe, will allow us to realize we're so much more than that. And as we open to that, we don't know what that is. Like, I don't know what's on the other side of my bridge, but I'm willing to trust because I have crossed that so many times.
Yeah, I think it's that remembrance piece is just speaking to me on a soul level, because I believe a lot of the things you believe, that we are here in this human experience to evolve and to, I guess, go deeper into the truth of who we are, but where I think the world kind of wants us to forget the truth of who we are, right? We got a lot of input coming at us at all times, and I used to get overwhelmed by that. Now I realize I am the master of my own container. I am very conscious of what I take in, so that I can remain in the light that I want to be for others.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to get there. I tell my clients when they're struggling, and that for the first 3 decades of my life, I was like a weeping willow tree. We had a big one in my yard. That's why I use this. And my energy center, my sense of self, would always be whipping all around if a family member had something going on, whatever was happening. I couldn't ground in my own truth back then. And I'd be like, whoosh, whoosh. And then one day, I think it was about 22 years ago, there was a family situation. And normally that would get me spinning. And I would remember feeling like I was witnessing it. And all of a sudden I heard, Linda, finally, the oak tree has arrived. Forest thing again. And I didn't really understand it, but I felt it in my body, like, oh, I can witness what's going on without going into the story, the energy. That is remembrance to me in my own body. I remembered how I was divinely wired. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, ladies, I couldn't hold on to and embrace it fully every day. But then because I got to taste it, I wanted it back. Like, I want to be the witness, not and that I kept focusing on that. And that's when people say to me, you get so much done. And I'm like, because I am grounded in my own energy and truth. Can you talk about that? Is that the feeling of remembrance that you experienced in your own personal journey?
I love that you connected those. In my own teaching of others, in the Turiya meditation sessions I do, in my work with clients, the whole experience and before the experience, the notion of the witness is so important to me, because that does, just as you described, Linda, allow us to see what is going on without being caught up and buffeted and pulled off into something that is not even ours to address.
And it was so empowering, and it still is. And listen, I'm human, right? So if there's a concern, especially when it comes to my grandchildren, that old spinning can come. But the thing is, once you experience the remembrance, as you so beautifully call your book, it's there. And if we nurture it, we can be in that energy more often, even when we forget, like something happens. Like
even when we forget.
Yes.
Yes.
So now, like I teach, I call it recalibration tools. So I have lots of calibration tools. I tell my clients, it doesn't matter if you forgot. What matters is that in the moment of awareness, when you remember, you make a new choice, which is the recalibration, come back to center.
Right.
And when I hear that phrase, by the way, unconditional remembrance, it does two things for me. It's almost, when I saw the words unconditional, this is just my energetic input, before I even knew more about the book, it was like this beautiful, it's like source love is unconditional.
Yes.
Remembrance is part of remembering our connection to source. That's my take. In your book title, I was like, oh,
Yep.
gotta get her on the show. So that's why your book really resonated with me, because I want all of our listeners to remember.
Yeah, and so do I, because that is how we're going to bring about more light into the world. It's just how it is. And when we bring more and more light, when we allow more and more of our own light, which happens as we witness, which happens in the remembrance, you're really changing the cell structure. It is not just a concept. It is a physical experience, and it happens at the cellular level. And all of my work has that as its foundation. Not that I'm trying to do something to someone, but in the Tereya Touch trainings that I do, in the Tereya Touch sessions that I do, in the initiation work that I do, it is really that transmission of activating what is already in the cells to be able to receive more and more light. Then we bring it into our family. Then we bring it into our community. Then we bring it into the world.
I just love this conversation because, as I said earlier, I believe we all have an inner light. A lot of us, like I did, I had become disconnected from it, but the truth is it was always there, right? We've just forgotten, if we stay in alignment with the title of your book. And when my clients are struggling in whatever area of their life, I always go, are you nurturing your own light? Or are you so worried about everyone else's that you're giving your truth and power away before you've nurtured your own light? Because if we let our light go dim, how can we be a beacon of light for those in our family, as you just said, the community and the world? I teach that our number one, this is my own belief, our number one spiritual responsibility is nourish our own light, so that we can be our part of elevating the vibration of the world, elevating the love in the world. But if we forget our light, then that dims everyone else around us too. And and don't you feel that even this conversation, even the birth of your book, even when I released my books through my publishing company, I believe there's always a divine timing around everything. And your book coming now, darling, is to remind us all to remember our light.
Yes. Yeah, I very much talk about divine timing or right timing, because we can get a great idea, but until all of the pieces come together in the way that they're supposed to, if you will, it's not right timing. And so we can push and we can struggle, we can think we have to do something, but instead, when we follow that flow of what is divine timing, if we feel into that, if we ask. So can I take a moment to speak to that, about how we can query of that interconnection? I'll put it that way.
Yes, let's take our final break and we'll come back for our last 10 minutes. And that's a perfect way to energetically close out our time. So we're going to take a quick break, my friends. I'm with Laurie Seymour. Stay with us and we'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. IOM FM.
The time is now to deepen your intuition, connect with the archangels, your guides, and own your sacredness so you can live the empowered, inspired life you desire. Intuitive spiritual teacher, healer, and holistic life coach Robin Fitzsimons consciously blends her treasure trove of healing modalities, including Akashic Records, Sui Reiki, and silent counseling, along with working with the angelics to support the divine wellness of her clients' body, mind, and spirit. Through her popular online classes and sacred readings, including shadow work, awakening your intuition, channeled angelic guidance, past life healing, soul recovery, and more, Robin brings women deeper into the truth of who they are in a safe and sacred container. She is the founder of Wellness with Robin in Platteville, Wisconsin, where she offers in-person sessions and classes. Learn more at wellnesswithrobin.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Times Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Laurie Seymour is about to walk us through a little exercise. Laurie, the stage is yours, my friend.
So I think I need to give a little context first, and maybe it's the context even more than an exercise around it.
Perfect.
Is that we have the capacity to get direction, to receive that inner guidance, not just as a willy-nilly, oh, maybe it'll be on, maybe it won't. And that's part of the distinction that I make between intuition and inner guidance. So when I have something that I want to know, when I have something that I want to have that inner guidance about, whether it is about timing of something, whether it's about my own next step, or how I'm needing to deal with a particular issue, I will get quiet first. Now, first, realize that I do know that feeling in my own body, but I'm sure that a lot of our listeners know how to get quiet in their own way. It's not like there's a certain technique to do that. That's the way. It's to get quiet, let your energy settle, because when I'm in a lot of emotion, I can't get truth. I can't get clarity. So I have to settle that, whether it's going for a walk, or for me, I breathe. I imagine light coming into my chest cavity as I breathe in, and I feel it going through me. And I feel myself getting settled in my own self. And think about this as if you were writing it, because this is the way I do teach people to do this in the beginning, which is to ask a question, to, what is it that I'm needing to know about this situation, whatever the situation is. And then I'll stay quiet, and then I'll allow myself with my pen to start to write. And it's not automatic writing exactly. It's directed writing. It's allowing myself, okay, first thought, best thought, and to start the flow of the writing at the same time that I am maintaining that peaceful feeling in myself, that centered feeling. And for those of our listeners who know about energy or like to experience or experiment with energy, it's as if you are tuning into a particular frequency. And the frequency is simply a feeling. And it's that feeling again of connection, of love, of joy, and of being the witness as I write. And I might get a sentence, I might get 2 pages, and then I set it aside. And I set it aside deliberately so that I can come back later. Again, when I come back to it, I get quiet, and then I read it aloud. I read it aloud so that I can feel the frequency, I can feel the vibration of the words. Do they nourish me? Do I feel that sense of well-being, of flow, and of truth in the words? That's how I know when I'm on, or whether, I flipped into excitement and personality and emotion. And not that those things are bad. it won't give you the same quality of direction as when you are feeling that sense of settledness and connectedness in yourself.
Did you hear that, ladies? Could you feel it? I could feel it in my body as you were sharing when you said where your body was, and then the words are flowing on the page. So is it your way, because it was so beautiful, is that your way of dropping in? Like dropping into your inner wisdom? Is it your way of maintaining that connection with your source? So when do you use that?
I use it all the time.
Okay. So
and yes, it is.
Yeah, regular. It's one of your regular tools.
It is, and it's become almost, it's more than a tool, because it's something that's so inherent. I know that I can receive the guidance. And now I don't always write. I can ask inside, and I can start to receive. I can speak. So when I do the Treya meditation sessions, for example, that I do twice a week online, I always do a teaching, and I never know what that first 5 or 7 minutes of teaching is going to be. But I drop into that connection, that right frequency, and I allow myself to speak. And then we go into the meditation.
Now, this part really resonates, because I loved when you said about the writing. That would have been new for me. I do the speaking and expecting, like I ask source, and then it comes through. But because I'm a writer and a publisher, and it was like, ooh, I'm gonna play with practice, because pen paper is this. The family laughs and said, "We always knew you'd be a publisher." I'm like, I'm glad you did, because this was never in my field of vision. Yeah, it never was. Want to know something, Laurie? Aspire came is a beautiful way to kind of tie up our conversation. I never had a desire to start a magazine, ever. I had just closed a 10-year award-winning business. And I went to massage school. I was going deep into a spiritual path. And I didn't know that I could receive with visuals, because I was at that part of my journey. And for 3 months, I kept seeing the front of a magazine, always the same exact cover, 3 stacked stones. I think they call those cairns. And always a hand-drawn logo of a woman coming out of a lotus. And Laurie, I didn't know that I was receiving. I was getting pissed off. That's what I was doing. Like, what is this waking me up in the middle of the night? And the more I ignored it, the more frustrated I got, the more it kept appearing. So, of course, my sleep was more disrupted. And one day, I'm going to age myself here, but I got up so aggravated and said, I'm just going to design this. And I just took what I saw in the vision and put it in Microsoft Publisher, printed it, hung it on my bulletin board, and all I said was, I have no idea what this is. And honestly, Laurie, I don't even know who I was speaking to at that time. I was just so frustrated. I said, whatever this is, I have no idea, but you better give me clarity. The first issue went out 9 weeks later. Everything, it happened so, and it was a print magazine for 3 years. It happened so fast.
Wow.
A graphic designer comes in who is just starting a business. The synchronicities. But what I see now is I could have ignored that, could have stayed with my frustration. I took the next best revealed step and trusted.
Yes.
And so I tell everyone, they say, oh, you birthed Aspire. I go, no, she birthed me, because it was in that journey of bringing her to life that I found my trust muscles to talk about what you did, to learn how it felt to trust a path that you can't even see the next step, because I had no experience in any of that.
Right.
And so that's what we're talking about, receiving that clarity, trusting it. And this is what your book, I want to invite everyone, Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. Please pick up a copy, because we all need to remember the truth of who we are. We've got to remember our light. And Laurie, I want to invite you, we have about 30 to 45 seconds to close out with a piece of wisdom that you'd like to our listeners with.
Yeah, I want to say something about the importance of taking action, and it's directly related to what you just shared about the magazine, about Aspire. Because if we just stay with it as an idea, nothing moves in our own system. We don't come into what is next, and we don't know what the next step is. We don't know where the path is going to take us. I don't know the path of where this book is taking me, and yet I needed to do it. I needed to publish it. I needed to put it out there. And I need to speak about it.
Yes. And I'm so happy that you did listen to your inner wisdom and bring this book to the world, because look at, if you didn't, I wouldn't have seen it. And we want to be having this delicious conversation and inspiring all our listeners to just remember the truth of who they are.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking inspired action on your, I call them divine downloads, on your vision. Such a gift to the world, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Linda.
Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.